Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Zaron.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I got a question for you.
Yes.
Do you like this hat?
Yes.
Thank you. I got another question for you.
Yes.
Do the shoes go with the hat?
No.
Okay, third question. You know what's ridiculous?
I do.
What?
It's not a mashup.
Because you finally broke it? You're like, oh, I got one that I
broke
liked.
it.
And so you're like, oh.
It's the end. Did you know that until 1996, the British government considered bagpipes a weapon of war?
I'm not surprised. I did not know that.
Well, I mean, it all goes back to Culloden, right?
Oh, wow.
I mean, everything goes back to
with
Culloden.
the Scots and the English, yeah.
Right. And so the Brits captured a Scottish piper and convicted him of treason, and said that the weapon he was carrying were the pipes. And because, the bagpipes are used to rouse.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you can hear them for super far away.
And they make good for both scaring and for organizing your team.
Exactly. And so, like, when you're used to hearing the sound, if it's not super jarring to you, then it is, like, rousing and it's stirring. And
it can be all of that.
You know
Depending on how you play it.
It's basically, it's what you make of it. And so, anyway, 1996, this dude was in Hampstead Heath in London, and he wouldn't stop playing the bagpipes.
Well, that's a big public place, too, to be doing that.
Yeah, and all the neighbors were like, oh, stop, because some people really hate pipes.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what time of day he was playing these things, so maybe it was like early in the morning, but either way. So he's playing these pipes, and then he gets busted with his fine for disturbing the peace. But then his lawyer points out that decision in 1746, declaring it a weapon of war, was never overturned. So he couldn't be charged with an 1890s bylaw of disturbing the peace with a musical instrument because it was actually a weapon of war. And so then it's like, well, the magistrates, well, wait a second. So then are you carrying
a weapon of war,
a dangerous weapon instead of so it goes back and forth, back and forth. He winds up, they write a new law that in times of war, it's a weapon of war. In times of peace, it's a musical instrument.
That's a good one.
And he had to pay the fines for annoying
Did he at least get his name attached to the law?
I don't think so.
You got to get your name attached to that law. Come on.
Not when you've got a piper, dude. And that is ridiculous.
That is definitely ridiculous.
I know it is. That's why I told you about it.
Do you know what else is ridiculous?
What?
Well, imagine you're some badass rock star,
Don't have to imagine.
Okay, yeah, so keep that energy. Now imagine that you're the kind of guy, the girl who snarls at paparazzi. And also you're the kind of rock star who like kicks their own fans.
Oh.
Right? And like you're the kind whose own band hates him. Right?
Oh.
And then like you get arrested at a bar in Canada and for being a douchebag, and everyone's like, yeah, and everyone loves it.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
This is Ridiculous Crime, a podcast about absurd and outrageous capers, heists, and cons. Daddy, it's always 99% motor free and 100% ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Oh, Elizabeth.
Oh, Zaron.
Today I want to talk to you about J.S. Bach, the Canadian-American rock star. Wait, got my notes mixed up.
What?
I mean S.P. Bach, as in Sebastian Philip Bach.
Yes.
Lead singer of the band Skid Row.
I loved that band back in the
Did you
day.
really?
Oh, my God, you have no idea.
Oh my God, this is a big
I was
surprise.
a huge fan.
For real?
Yes.
I would have never
I
guessed
saw them
that.
in concert.
Did you really?
I did.
I know you love Guns N' Roses, so this isn't like too far afield,
Right.
but it's way more of that. It's like the
it's
hair metal,
there's a lot.
like
There's a lot.
So I had like looked up song titles to jar your memory.
You
can be singing lyrics back at me.
Yes, I am.
Oh wow! So then, okay, fun fact: do you know that Sebastian Bach is a stage name?
That I didn't know.
Wow, I got something
You
nice.
got something on
Okay,
it.
so he was born.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, of course. He was born as Sebastian, but he was not born a Bach. He was born a Bierk. Bierk.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is
so-
kind of ringing a bell.
Sebastian Philip Bierk. Born in the Bahamas in April of 1968.
Oh, yeah, man.
Family soon moved to what would become his hometown of Peterborough, Ontario. Remember that town name. It'll come up again later.
Okay.
What do you know of Sebastian Bach that you like just when you think of him? Beyond like, oh, he's got that great, I don't know, voice.
Head of hair.
Yeah, hair.
I know that he's a total jerk.
Yes, he is a total jerk.
Did he do like reality TV?
Did reality
later
TV?
On?
He's done Broadway lately.
It.
He's been doing.
Oh, really?
He's been acting on Broadway.
I saw a video not too long ago on Instagram of him drunk singing in like a hotel.
That sounds right.
Like a conference room,
Sure.
and I'm not sure what it was for, and I just didn't have the heart to open it up and really look at it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, the band Skid Row, your favorite, their first album, eponymously titled Skid Row, came out in 1989. And they followed that up with Slave to the Grind, came out in 1991, sophomore album. Both of those huge hits, multi-platinum.
Yeah.
Right? And so let's just go over some song titles. 18 in Life.
That was like their big
That's the big hit.
Yeah, and I was just a little youngin'
and
and I loved it.
Yeah, okay. Do you remember I Remember You?
Yeah, that was the power ballad.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, these are both like Billboard Hot 100.
Oh, yeah, the heavy MTV rotation.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Monkey Business, that one worked for you?
Yeah, I can remember that kind of.
Youth Gone Wild?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The other title hit, Slave to the Grind?
Yeah, that was the title. So, okay.
Yeah, and then like, I don't know, Wasted Time.
That's another power ballad.
Yeah,
I
figured I wanted a range.
Yeah,
the full
and I appreciate
Sebastian
that.
Bach experience. So their third album, Subhuman Race, that came out in 1995.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Critics liked it, some loved it. Fans were like, nah. Because grunge had happened, and it was years past the point of grunge breaking.
Way on,
and everyone's like, oh, Skid Row's still making music. That's wild. I had no interest, but that's interesting.
Right?
So at this point...
They're still alive?
Yeah, exactly. That marked the beginning of them playing like state and county fairs.
Oh, what a
then
circuit.
Later on, they would be doing reunion tours, but it was all like, that was their future, right? Well, let's not talk about the rough years, at least not yet.
Okay.
Let's talk about the fun beginning, the early years.
Yeah.
From what I understand, John Bon Jovi is to blame for Skid Row. I mean, I kid, but like, it is his fault.
Yeah, I think, aren't the rest of them from New Jersey?
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't know this. So the band was coming up. Everyone knew it, who knew them, and everyone in the music industry on the East Coast, specifically in the New York, New Jersey area, or include Philly, I guess, they could see that they were on the cusp of breaking, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, they're so close to success. And then that's when their boat begins to sink, right? When they're just, within view of the coast, the boat begins to sink. And then at this point, steps in bad boy of New Jersey, John Bon Jovi.
John Bon Jovi.
Yes. Well, first it was his parents. John Bon Jovi's dad, John Bon Jovi Sr., a barber and former Marine, and his lovely wife, Carol Bon Jovi, who was coincidentally also a former Marine, but also a former Playboy bunny.
Wait, John Bon Jovi's mom
Yes.
was a Playboy bunny.
Yes, and a Marine, and later a florist.
This is fantastic.
I'm presuming Carol had stories.
Carol, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they're together at a wedding, Carol and John Bon Jovi Sr., and the rock photographer Mark Weiss is getting betrothed. So he's there, and he's got a young Sebastian Bach singing at the reception, and John Bon Jovi's parents are impressed, and they were like, our son's in the music business, and you should call him. In fact, you should call his friend Dave Sabo. He needs a singer for his band. Have you ever been to New Jersey? So, Elizabeth, if you don't know this, Dave Sabo was the original guitarist for the band of a little band called Bon Jovi.
Okay.
He was later replaced by Richie Sambora, who everybody knows, right?
Yeah. He's
Anyway.
a cowboy on a steel horse he rides.
Exactly. So Dave Sabo was John Bon Jovi's childhood friend.
Interesting.
They grew up in the same hood in New Jersey. They went way back, right? So anyway, young Sebastian Bach, he does as John Bon Jovi's parents tell him to do. He rings Dave Sabo, and the band is like, yeah, man, you should come out to New Jersey. We're having tryouts. And Sebastian Bach's like, okay, I'll be there, man. So he flies out to New Jersey from Canada. He does this killer audition, apparently because Skid Row offers him the job. So they're like, you nailed it, kid. 1987, Sebastian Bach joins the band. He's the new lead singer. Now they're back, headed for success again, right?
Okay.
Soon enough, he's now the face of the band because the lead singer is going to be the face of the band.
Of course, yeah.
So it's their band, and they hire this kid, and he becomes the face of the band. And the band, it does indeed blow up. In 1989, band drops their debut album, The Skid Row, huge hit. yada, yada, yada. A little while back, Sebastian Bach, he had dropped a memoir. He looked back at those heady days of the rock stardom in the late 80s and early 90s. And, wistfully, remembering like, oh, it was so great. You could get drugs anywhere.
What a time.
Yeah, exactly. I had all these teams of lawyers. So he also brought up his feud with John Bon Jovi, the man whose parents started his career, because they got into a feud once he was a star. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. John Bon Jovi was critical to Skid Row's success, everything. And also remember, the band is his childhood friend's band. So he's going to be protective of the band. And now they got this like full of themselves Canadian hair metal kid going, I'm the band.
Oh, God.
So the band's about to drop their debut album. John Bon Jovi goes, I'm going to help them out. So let's take them out on the road. They can open for Bon Jovi. That'll be a huge boost.
Yeah.
And so they're doing their 1988, 1989 New Jersey Syndicate tour. I'm not sure if you remember this.
No, I don't.
I didn't. Yeah, the story goes Skid Row's opening for John Bon Jovi, and it's going well, perhaps too well. The band's album comes out, fans coming out to see John Bon Jovi, and suddenly folks coming out to see Skid Row, the opener.
Yeah.
So that caused a little tension between the bands, and then also apparently the merch numbers shift, and John Bon Jovi's band isn't selling as much merch as Skid Row. I don't know, but I find it all kind of hard to believe in that part of the telling. What I do believe is that in 1989, while they're watching the stratospheric rise of Skid Row, it goes to Sebastian Bach's head. That's what I believe happened.
Well, I mean, I think too, what is it? I don't know what album Bon Jovi was supporting with the tour.
Yeah.
But I feel like at this point, like they had peaked.
Yes, they were definitely cresting.
And he's like just about to go into a solo career, right? Like
yes,
I think
pretty
so.
much, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just, then you get like, and Skid Row were super MTV ready.
Yes,
you know,
completely.
like it was.
And they don't know it, but the whole window on this rock music is very quickly closing. They've got 2 years essentially.
Yeah, that's it.
And then it'll be, nobody wants what you're doing anymore.
Exactly.
Like you and Rat, So, so one night.
Get your warrant and get out of here.
At this point, Sebastian Bach, though, doesn't know this, so success has gone to his head, and old Seabass starts to piss off his fellow frontman, John Bon Jovi. One night after their set, John Bon Jovi comes over to the Skid Row dressing room, and as Sebastian Bach tells it, he stared me down and said the words, I'll own you. So another big, potty mouth.
Yeah.
After that, Bon Jovi and Skid Row had beef, right? So later on in the tour, the stage crew for Bon Jovi starts allegedly throwing milk all over Sebastian Bach just before he's supposed to go out on stage, right? So he's covered in milk. I don't know, yeah. So he goes out on stage anyway because he's like, I'll show you guys. And then he launches into this rant about what a bunch of posers Bon Jovi are and the headliners. And he calls the lead singer John Bon Blow Me. To all the fans.
In front of
the fans who came to see Bon Jovi.
While drenched in milk.
Drenched in milk. As Newton would tell you, Isaac Newton, every action has a reaction. His onstage rant against Bon Jovi at their show led to a New Jersey-sized reaction.
Yeah.
Not the state, like, I'm from New Jersey, and this is what's going to be the reaction.
Yeah.
So back to Sebastian Bach. We saw about 60 people coming towards us. They're backstage. Crowd of 60 people in the back just coming at them. Leading the charge of this road crew and pissed off people is former Marine John Bon Jovi Sr., followed closely by his son, John Bon Jovi Jr. John Bon Jovi Jr. marches right up to Sebastian Bach and he gets in his face and he shouts, I heard what you said on my stage, and then he threw a punch, but his punch was poorly aimed and it missed wide of his target apparently. And now before frontman on frontman violence can go get any bigger and get any uglier, the road crew grabs Sebastian Bach and slams him up against the wall.
There's a height difference between these two.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
He's much taller than John Bon Jovi. I don't know how he could get in his face. He really got in his chest.
Exactly.
So anyway, the road crew now is holding him up against the wall and maybe getting something for John Bon Jovi to stand on and get in his face again.
Him.
Yeah, so but at this point, they're also just mad he dared not to get hit by that initial punch, right? So meanwhile, the former Marine, Daddy Bon Jovi, anyway, he shoves an angry figure in Sebastian Bach's face and he starts shouting at him, right? According to Sebastian Bach.
Where's Carol? Where's Carol in all this?
She's being reasonable. She's just working on
she's calling in the big guns.
She's pulling a Carmela.
The phone rings at the bada bang.
Yeah. So Sebastian Bach, who was there, tells us, Bon Jovi Sr. pointed in my face as I was held against the wall and he said, I'll kill you, or something like that. So after everybody's getting all their potty mouth anger out, after that encounter, Sebastian Bach versus John Bon Jovi, the feud simmers for another decade, right? Until 2006, they meet in a London bar.
Uh-oh.
They hug it out like bros.
they
say, man, let's put the past behind us.
How could you bite the hand that feeds you like that, where you're like,
do not know.
Dad hooks you up?
Yes.
And then, like, how uncomfortable it makes it in the band, because, like, his bandmate is friend.
Yes, your friend, exactly.
Golly.
I didn't know any of that dynamic about the band.
Neither did I.
Fun fact that I did learn while researching this one, in 1980, a young Bon Jovi, that's John Bon Jovi, just him, not the whole band, had no professional credits to his name, right? But he did have a little band called The Rest. That's it, right? Not the best name, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's working at a recording studio, pushing a broom, just like Chris Christopherson did.
Right.
And again, this is 1980, right? So there's this massive hit out there still shaping pop culture, and this massive hit was called Star Wars. Came out years prior, but still, Empire is going to come out that year, but it's still shaping the culture so much that there was a disco DJ in New Jersey who was looking for a way to cash in on all that Star Wars loose money around in the culture. This disco producer was named Miko, and he was working on a little project called Christmas in the Stars, the Star Wars Christmas album. Because the thinking was kids would ask their parents to buy anything with the word Star Wars on it.
That's true.
So remember, as I said, John Bon Jovi Jr.
Star Wars owned the
for years.
Late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s.
If you put Star Wars on something or a picture of an Ewok,
it works like that today.
It still does, yeah. So exactly, it's just like a money printing machine. That's why Disney bought it.
That's right.
So John Bon Jovi's pushing his broom at this recording studio, and he's there the day they're recording Christmas in the Stars, the Star Wars Christmas album. And for one track, they don't have the voice they need. So Johnny Bon Jovi is like, hey, I can sing. And so the disco producer's like, okay, baby, let's hear your pipes, right? And Johnny Bon Jovi takes his place at the mic, and when the track comes up, he starts singing the lyrics to R2-D2's version of We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
Wait.
And that's how John Bon Jovi got his first professional music credit.
R2D2, so he just
all started with an R2D2.
He just did beepings?
No, he sings. I don't know. He sings
the
lyrics.
Star Wars.
R2D2 can't sing. He can't beep boop bop his way through.
I thought that's what it would be.
No, he's like accent. He's like scatting, I guess.
He's like, what is an R2D2 accent? I know in your deep bag of accents, you've got an R2D2 accent
The whistles, though, are so hard to pull off.
I know, but it's also, it's like, and then he's like, Merry Christmas.
Just like that. Just like that.
But I'm sure y'all have heard that the main Star Wars theme by Miko, like the disco version, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
It's so good.
I want the album now.
It's a banger. No, it definitely is. Yeah, it's the reason why he's like, well, let's do a Christmas album, because people are like, this is dope. And he's like, oh, I got more dope. Yeah, so I'm loving this. So there you go. From a flagrant cash grab, John Bon Jovi gets his first one. Anyway, that sounds like many of my bad weekends. So let's take a little break, slip into something comfortable, listen to some ads, and after these messages, we'll get into the Battlin Bachs.
Yes.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Zaron.
At this point, I've pulled this bowstring back far enough to make it nice and taut. You ready to see this arrow fly?
Yes.
So in 1996, Sebastian Bach was fired from his band Skid Row. He had a good run, lasted from 1987 to 1996.
Okay.
At least 3 good years.
Yeah.
And then just a full 9-year run, So anyway, that's 1 year longer than the American Revolution.
Very true.
The reason
Very
why
true.
Sebastian Bach was fired from Skid Row remains the matter of myth and speculation.
Oh.
The gossip of heavy metal roadies and groupies. But there are certain rumors, like there's one rumor that Sebastian Bach was fired from Skid Row because he wanted the band to play as an opener for one of his favorite childhood bands. Want to guess what band Sebastian Bach idolized as a kid and was willing to risk it all to tour with? Yes! Do you know this story?
No, it just tracks.
Oh my God, you're good.
I'm trying to think of what... I'm just not a big fan of Kiss, and I was like,
at his age, and
what's for his age and like a mega band that would like be
still be around,
but like lame.
Yeah, exactly. That people would be like, what? I don't
He's
want to tour
not just
with
going
them.
like super hard or like really, oh my God, they're amazing musicians. And it's like this,
Yeah.
no,
He's not risking it for the MC5. He's like...
Exactly. It's just tracks.
So Sebastian Bach he wanted to open for Kiss, and the rest of Skid Row was like, will they be wearing the makeup and their lace-up boots and capes? So,
and their high heels?
Yeah, that's not really what they said. But what did happen is,
did.
Elizabeth, let me take you back. It was 1996. Grunge was big. Hair metal's out at this point.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Metallica has cut their hair, right?
Oh, my God, yeah.
So at this point in the
They're
culture...
in therapy.
Exactly. They're doing anger management. So neither Skid Row nor Kiss is at the top of the charts anymore, but they both still have armies of loyal fans, and they're not too old to rock and roll.
96 too. We're getting through grunge into new metal.
Yes, exactly. We're making that shift.
Mm-hmm.
So when Kiss announces like once Silverchair happens, everyone's like, okay, grunge is done. Let's move on. So when Kiss announces a reunion tour, they reach out to Sebastian Bach, who is a Kiss superstar, as I said, and they ask if Skid Row wants to go on tour with Kiss and open for the glam demons of rock and roll. And Sebastian Bach is like, yes, absolutely, yes. Oh my God, jumping up and down.
Right.
And then he goes to tell his bandmates, and they're like, no, absolutely not. And so I guess they had different opinions about what cool was. And Sebastian Bach was on Steve-O's podcast, Wild Ride, and he recounted the events as best as he could remember them. Again, rock star, so hazy memory. But according to Sebastian Bach's gin-soaked memory, the bass player, Rachel Bolan, had a tour planned with their side project, a punk band he'd started with Skid Row's Roadies. So that was why Sebastian Bach didn't get to play with his childhood heroes.
Oh, okay.
Right, so he reached out to John Bon Jovi's childhood friend, old Dave Sabo, the guitarist for the band, and Sebastian Bach had some thoughts about this, like, oh, he's playing with a punk band, I don't get to play with Kiss, and he wanted the Skid Row guitarist, Sabo, to hear his thoughts. And so as Sebastian Bach told Steve-O the story, and I quote, I called the guitar player, Dave Sabo, and let him know what I thought. He didn't pick up, so I just went, you and I just let him know what I thought of him, not letting me play with Kiss at the reunion tour of Kiss in New Jersey at the Meadowlands Arena. So, Elizabeth, again, this is 1996.
It's 96.
Which is key to the story, because in 1996, people had answering machines for their house phones.
I know.
You remember those, right?
I know.
For some answering machines, while the person is leaving a message, it plays on a speakerphone
you
setting.
can hear it.
So anyone standing there in the room with that phone can hear the message as it's being left and recorded.
Yeah.
It used to be great for scenes in dumb comedies.
Right.
Well, keep that energy in mind, dumb comedy. Because turns out Dave Sabo saw who was calling. He's like, I'm not answering that.
Yeah.
But he didn't pick up the call, but he did stand there and listen to the message.
It's classic.
On speakerphone. So as Sebastian Bach is leaving it, and Dave Sabo, though, wasn't alone. Because the way Sebastian Bach tells the story to Steve-O, and I quote, he goes, my whole family heard that message that came out of the speaker. My whole family was there. So that was it. What was the old cliche? Back to Sebastian Bach. That was the last straw. And if you ask the bass player and them, they will say that there was a lot of leading up to that, but that was the very last straw. So I guess why he got fired from the band is because he left a message and it irritated his bandmate, John Bon Jovi's best friend, because screaming at him and being way too
in front of his family
for a family from New Jersey.
Right?
Like, you know how hard it is? You got to exceed their standards of uncouth. Like, they've heard some stuff.
I've known bands that have broken up and they're looking for an excuse. If one person is the catalyst,
totally,
and they're like, oh,
here's the line.
Oh, it was that. And everyone's like, wait, what? No, it's a lot more, but yeah.
I think you're on. But if we take his word for it, he wasn't fired from Skid Row because he said yes to Kiss, but he was booted from the band because he was a pompous, spoiled rock star, essentially.
That totally makes
sense. No one wanted to be around him because they were sick of having to hold the bag of his bad behavior.
Sure.
So anyway, that brings us to the story I wanted to tell you today.
Yes.
What was the name of that Canadian town I told you to remember up top?
Peter something?
Oh, close.
Yeah.
It was Peterborough.
Peterborough.
All right. It's easy to remember. Just think Spider-Man, right? Is Peter Parker. Peter Parker is from the borough of Queens. Peterborough.
Get out of
Peterborough.
town.
Boom. So
That's
Spider-Man equals Peterborough.
That's not happening in the hamster cage.
It's called a memory trick, Elizabeth. You keep that one for free.
Okay.
It's on the house. Seriously, come to my seminar this weekend. I'm at the Ramada Inn out by the airport. Anyway, the scene of this crime was Riley's Old Town Pub in Sebastian Bach's hometown of where? Peterborough. That's old, by the way, with no E at the end, but the town has an E at the end. Like they couldn't make up their mind on which way they wanted to go.
I'm so bummed that what's it called? The Old Town
Riley's
Saloon?
Old Town Pub.
Old Town Pub.
Yeah.
But no E on the end of old.
Old, but E at the end of town. So
what about at the end of pub?
no. So they decided they split the difference on their old-timey vibes.
Okay.
Like, we can only afford one E.
Yeah.
So it's November, Ides of November, in fact, November 15th.
Yeah.
So one thing I thought was funny, how every single news story that covered this incident made sure to include the phrase Sebastian Bach, whose real name is Sebastian Bach. But they wanted to bust him out.
Burn. I love it.
Or maybe they just want people to know, I read the arrest report. I don't know what it was.
Or it's just like, if you're not familiar with him, they're like, wait, this man's name is Sebastian. They're like, no. No. It's not that cool.
Don't put on airs. It's Birk.
It's actually really lame.
So what's the story, Zaron? Great question, Elizabeth.
Oh my God, thank you.
At the time, Sebastian Bach, 42-year-old former rock star turned Broadway actor and part-time reality TV personality.
Broadway actor.
Yeah, with a side of reunion tour hopeful. Now, he's
wait,
in
what
his,
reality TV shows?
VH1 stuff.
Something VH1,
I'm not going to. Yeah, exactly. With the brother and the big in a house. And yay! So in his hometown of where, Elizabeth?
Peterborough.
There you go. That's right. Spider-Man Canada. In an exclusive interview with music and culture outlet Blabbermouth, Sebastian Bach recalled that, and I quote, I went to Peterborough to deal with my dad's estate and pack up his art and put it in a truck and drive to New Jersey. And it was pure misery. So that was a rough day. One of my friends wanted to sing a song to me, a song at the microphone, and the owner wouldn't let her. So right off, we've got an emotionally stressed rock star with aging family care issues, right? That's always difficult, be super stressful.
Yeah.
Like you said, rough day. We've all,
it's rough when a friend says, I want to sing a song to you in a bar on a microphone.
To make you feel better.
That's rough. That puts me through the ringer.
So he and his friends.
That's traumatic.
I know for you.
When your friend is like, I want to sing a song to you
in public. Like probably a bar.
I'm like, that's
in your hometown.
You tell me all about it later.
So they decide that, maybe some impromptu karaoke will cheer up Seabass, right? But the man won't let them sing. So what's a rock and roll rebel like Seabass supposed to do? Well, from some media reports I read, Sebastian Bach had essentially gone up to the stage where there was a house musician playing. I imagine a guy with a guitar.
Yeah. Oh, maybe some keys.
He asked, maybe, but he asked if his friend can sing for the bar patrons.
Do you know what song it was?
No, I don't know what song they wanted to sing.
I'm so mad at you for not supplying the song.
I looked up as much as I could for this one
for
you.
You did.
So the house musician was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, man, sure. Like, you just need to ask the owner if it's cool. And I mean, his name's Jim. He's right over there. You ask him and he'll let you. Now, Sebastian Bach didn't want to go through all that hassle, right? So instead, he just went back to his seat with his friends. And I guess they'd been drinking a little bit already.
No.
And yeah, maybe, they were going around the world like annoying teenagers at this point. Either way, they decided they'll get the bar owner to come over to them. So they start pelting the house musician with ice cubes from where they're seated. Right? But this isn't a big place. This isn't like a raucous dive bar.
Yeah.
Just imagine a small Canadian old town pub. Now, the bar owner, he does come over to their table and he asks Sebastian Bach to chill the F out and stop throwing ice cubes at the house musician and heckling him, because they also started heckling the kid who's just up there on a stool with a guitar. At that point, Sebastian Bach starts throwing ice cubes at the bar owner's face, who's just right there in front of him. Like, I'm not a rock star, Elizabeth. I've never been a rock star. But I have to assume if I were a rock star, I would know that throwing ice cubes at some house musician is not the way to get what I want.
No.
Specifically,
that kid,
if I want to share the stage with him.
That kid's working through the Indigo Girls catalog.
Exactly.
You gotta just let him write it out, dude.
I don't think ice cubes are going to sway a Canadian bar owner. I just don't.
No.
Anyway, the bar owner's like, okay, time for you to go. So at this point, real rock star energy comes into play, and Sebastian Bach apparently decided to be the one who was offended. So he's like, how dare you? I am a former lead singer of an 80s hair metal band, Skid Row. How dare you ask me to leave this premises? And the bar owner's like, you threw ice at my classical guitar player. Get out.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was a classical guitar player. I just threw that in there for color.
Let's say it was. That's even better. Right? If it's a classical guitar player and he's just like doing all these like arpeggios, and then he's like, my friend wants to sing
a power ballad,
a Journey song.
You know, 18 in Life. So now, what I haven't told you up until now, so I wanted to save it, is that this is all going down in a wine bar.
Wait, the Old Town Pube is a wine bar?
Yes.
Oh my God. Do they do like a sip and paint thing?
It gets better. When Sebastian Bach takes issue with the owner, he stands up with his wine glass and attempts to swan out of the place, feeling all hurt and wounded. So the bar owner's like, you can't leave with that glass of wine. And
You're
Sebastian
not Rihanna.
Bach, yeah, he's doing his best impression of Rihanna leaving with a glass of wine. But like when Riri does it, it's like ultra cool. When Sebastian Bach does it, it's like me getting kicked out of a bar in like a shopping mall in Florida. It's just not nearly as cool. So it's like real bad mamma jamma behavior, right? So on his way to being escorted out the door, Sebastian Bach asks himself, what would a real rock star do in this moment of petulance? And then he did his best impression of that. So he decides he will take his unfinished glass of wine and throw it down at the floor like, I'm leaving anyway. I don't need
Get
this.
out of here.
So in an interview with the outlet Chex TV, which I have to assume is a Canadian TV station and not a media outlet for the fine makers of Chex Party Mix and cereals. Actually, I did check, because I thought you may ask. Chex TV is a local TV station coming out of Peterborough, Ontario.
Oh, it's
in the Great White North. Yeah.
Is it their like public access?
No, it's like a local channel. Just like
Is it run by Czechoslovakians?
No, I think they do C for Canada, and then everything's just like 3 letters. I don't know.
Whatever.
Anyway,
Okay,
in an interview with Chex TV,
it.
the bar owner said he raised his hand and threw the wine glass with the wine in it as hard as he could on the floor, shattering it. So at that point, the bar owner was like, grab him! And then decided if you want to have a job done right, you have to do it yourself.
Was it a buttery shard or a robust?
I imagine it was a robust red, yeah. So maybe maybe a Merlot. He seems like that kind of guy to drink a real.
I just like it. Maybe it's like a Pinot Grigio, like a light summer wine.
He likes a Syrah, Petite Syrah. So at this point, the bar owner goes and tackles Sebastian Bach before he gets out the door so he can hold him for the police. And as Sebastian Bach tells the story to Blabbermouth, I ended up tackled up from behind, so the only thing I could do, of course, was bite the dude.
Oh, of course.
So drunk and asked to leave, clearly embarrassed, he decides to raise the stakes to assault and some light cannibal cosplay.
Trash behavior.
There's video of the incident that corroborates that that's pretty much exactly what happens. Or you could take the word of Judd Smoke, who is a friend of Sebastian Bach.
Wait, stop.
Judd
Stop
Smoke.
the presses.
Yes.
Judd Smoke.
Judd Smoke.
Is he actually Judd Smirk?
No, yeah, exactly. No, it's Judd Smoke. So, I mean, it could be like Smokowitz. I don't know. He may be a longer name. I have no idea. But he was there that night.
Judd Smoke.
And he will tell you if you ask him, or if you don't ask him, as he told media outlets at the time, everybody is painting Baz in a bad light, but he didn't do no attacking to no bar owner. As per se, like I've seen on TV and the internet, it was more than the other way around. I was there.
Okay, so we need to go back and test some grammar and mechanics. But also, was Judd Smoke the guy who was like, I want to sing to my friend?
I love
at
that.
a wine bar?
I think it was a girl who was with him, or a woman who was with him, rather.
Smoke.
But let's say it was.
Let's say it was.
So at this point, Sebastian Bach picks back up the story, and he says, okay, I threw a glass of wine on the ground because he kicked me out of the bar in my home town. You can go to Friendly's with your grandma and she could drop a glass of water on the ground. Nobody tackles her. You broke a glass. What the So that was his take on the events.
I think if you want to paint yourself as a bad boy of rock and roll, you have to look at like the pinnacle.
Yes.
The version. And that's Keith Richards.
Oh, yeah.
And like, would Keith Richards do this?
Yes,
No.
and do it this way.
Keith would not do that.
You can even take a couple steps down to Axl Rose and be like, would Axl do this?
No, he would be like, you're acting like trash.
Yeah, exactly.
Keith Richards, like, no.
Keith wouldn't even deign to talk to you at that point.
No, exactly. They're not going to pull all this. I am really up to my eyeballs in like not being able to tolerate trash behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Like fighting in public or mouthing off about, don't act like trash.
Acting like you're in a reality TV show, but there's no cameras.
Yes. Stop. Vladimir, stop.
So what was the result of all this bad behavior in Ye Old Town Pub in where, Elizabeth?
Petersboro.
So I got 2 words for you. Rabies test.
Wait, stop. No, what is happening? Am I having a stroke?
As Sebastian Bach told Blabbermouth, I had to go and take a rabies test to make sure I didn't have communicable diseases. So we've talked about rabies recently.
Because he bit Oh.
Because he bit the guy, so they had to go get a
So he
rabies
had to
test.
prove
'cause
up that he
he's the
doesn't
dog
have-
that has to be tested for rabies.
Oh my God.
And you and I have talked about rabies recently,
Yes.
personally. And I just got to say, that sounds like one of the worst things I've ever heard about. And going out from rabies,
I ruined your day /month/life.
Month, dude. The symptoms sound like an Old Testament curse.
Someone left a comment somewhere on Reddit, and if you search it, rabies, what happened? I don't know. I can't remember the search function I used. But it is a detailed moment by moment description of what happens from the moment you're bitten and don't know it.
Yes.
To when
I read it. You made me read that.
A painful death.
And I'm horrified.
I read it out loud to you.
I'm
And then
sitting
I
here-
forwarded it to other people.
The whole fear of water is
Yes.
the
That
weirdest
is
thing.
the
It makes
least
you-
of your concerns.
Yes, but it makes you irrationally afraid of water, so much so that the rabies wants you to go out and die, so that way scavengers will come along and eat your body, and then the rabies can spread.
But it's
a genius alien virus. I hate it.
Each level of it is just
It was horrendous.
exponentially
It's one of the worst
worse
things
and
I've
worse.
ever read.
Yeah, I think I'll figure out a way that we can put the links.
Oh my God.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So anyway, the owner of the bar demands that Sebastian Bach get a rabies test because he doesn't want this either, right? And you know what? I don't blame him. So after he went to the
but
doctor,
what are the odds that he's walking around rabid?
well,
I mean, you're more
1 in a million's high enough for me.
I think that you're more likely to get some sort of STD.
Oh yeah, much more likely. But you could get both, Elizabeth.
Why not
So
both?
after he went to the doctor for his mandatory court-ordered rabies test,
Oh my God.
the Canadian-American hair metal rocker proudly proclaimed to the world, "I'm happy to say I'm rabies-free. I'm not rabid." So there you go, Sebastian Bach, legally declared not rabid.
I am so sorry for Canada.
And if you're wondering,
They're nice people. They don't deserve
they don't deserve
this
any
at
of
all.
this. Most of the rock stars that come out of Canada, Canada's come on, they're from Wisconsin.
No, what are you talking about? Neil Young.
Nickelback, Chad Kroeger.
They're from Canada?
Yeah.
That's a clerical error.
So if you were wondering about him catching charges, the courts in Ontario decided to drop the charges for the bite and the general ice cube battery. As for justice, Sebastian Bach did donate $700 to charity as recompense for the broken wine glass.
What was the charity?
I did not ask.
The Sebastian Bach Fund?
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. That's your Sebastian Bach fun for today.
That's incredible.
But I do have one more story for you about a Sebastian Bach. As in the OG Johann Sebastian Bach. That guy also spent time inside locked up. And guess there's just something about them Bach boys, Elizabeth. So let's take a break. After these messages, I'll tell you about the OG bad boy Sebastian Bach.
Ow.
Elizabeth.
Zaron.
We're back.
Hi.
And have I got a hell of a finisher for you?
I bet you do.
So I was doing some research, right? And I had to go hit up Wikipedia to find out Sebastian Bach's parents' names. And at the top of his Wikipedia page is this disambiguation note. You know, like one of those sentences that says, this article is about X. For articles on Y, see this other person or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, on Sebastian Bach's Wikipedia page, there's a disambiguation note, and it reads, this article is about the heavy metal singer. For the Baroque composer, see Johann Sebastian Bach. And I just want to sit on the shoulder of someone who's looking for info on Johann Sebastian Bach and mistakenly reads Sebastian Bach's Wikipedia and gets the two musicians confused.
No,
and they're always telling people fun facts about this genius Sebastian Bach.
You know what's going to happen.
And you know what he did with Counterpoint?
Chat GPT AI is going to scan that.
Yeah.
And then some ding-dong fourth grader is going to be asked to write a report on Johann Sebastian Bach.
Talking about the toccata and fugues.
And he's going to go off on a wine bar brawl and the rabies determination. And the fourth grade teacher is going to be like, this is why I'm quitting at the end of the year. I can just see it. The whole movie's playing out in my head right now.
So this is what I want to tell you about. The OG Bach, J.S. Bach, Johann Sebastian.
The real deal.
Yeah. So primarily people in the know say that Bach was a prolific composer, a man who heard God in the notes of a clavichord. His most famous works are the toccata and fugue in D minor, I mentioned that, the Brandenburg concertos, the Goldberg variations, the well-tempered clavier. The man was known to bust out a chorale at the drop of a hat, right?
He was a generous lover.
He came from a family of musicians. Keep that thought in mind.
Oh, God.
And he's chief among them. The man ate, slept, and breathed music when he wasn't being a generous lover. But also, we kind of
teach me to make a crack.
we treat him like we treat all dead classical geniuses as like a bit of like an NPR listening fuddy-duddy.
Right.
And let me tell you, Elizabeth, that could not be further from the truth when it comes to Johann Sebastian Bach, namesake of the hair metal frontman. Now, the OG Bach was born in 1685, and he spent his prolific working years in what would come to be called Germany. But during his time there, it was a patchwork of dukes and duchies and mad princes.
Yeah.
There was no Germany yet. And as a working musician, he had to bounce around a bit, dealing with these dukes and duchies and mad princes while he was looking for a steady gig in the courts. And his job seeking was made more difficult by the fact that J.S. Bach was something of a bad boy. And he's dealing with all these future Germans, right? They were like, we're not into this. So he was not the white-haired, sober-minded Lutheran that most folks would imagine.
Sure.
The conductor, John Eliot Gardner, he wrote a biography of the composer, and he commented on this character of Bach, the subversive, as he called him. And he said that we need to reimagine the man. Because, quote, suppose instead we start to view him as an unlikely rebel.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Keep that thought well in mind, which is certainly something I would say this about any teacher who fights his students or a proud young man who gets locked up for a month because he bristles at the power structure of his day. That's J.S. Bach.
Okay.
Also, apparently, a thirsty fella.
Oh.
Bach went on a 2-week trip, and he came back and he handed over receipts from his travel he could get recompensed by the church for his travel expenses. So Bach charged the church a ton for all the beer he was drinking. 2-week trip, right? He drank 8 gallons of beer during that 2-week trip.
In 2 weeks?
Now, I did the conversion math for you because I know you love conversions.
Thank you, I do.
There's 128 fluid ounces per gallon. He did 8 of those. So we worked that out. 8 is 2 to the 3rd, 128 is 2 to the 7th, add the exponents.
Oh,
you get 2 to the 10th.
Your exponents.
And then that's 1,024, right?
That's
so if you
easily
divide
done
that,
on a calculator.
if you divide that by 12 ounces, which is the amount of fluid, a beer in a can, that works out to be about 85 1/3 beers. Now, if you divide that by 14 days, which means he's drinking every single day the same rate, Monday through Sunday, that's an average of 6 beers a day every day of his 14-day trip. So he's drunk on Sunday
too. Just a sixer every day.
Yeah, so
good God.
He also had beer added to one of his contracts of employment.
Well, and those are the beers that he bought.
Yes, exactly. He was the one that other people bought for him.
Exactly.
So Bach apparently made sure there was a stipulation in his contract that he had access to tax-free beer. And not just any beer. He demanded the Pilsners and lagers from the Castle's brewery. He wanted the good stuff. He's like, what's the Prince drink?
No
That's what
swill.
I want.
Yeah.
I want Reinheitsgebot stuff. So he wasn't, by the way, when he wasn't maintaining his buzz, apparently, Bach was also rumored to meet young ladies for a rendezvous in the organ loft.
I think it was when he was maintaining his
They
buzz.
said that his organ had no stops.
Oh, hello.
He'd invite them up there to check the pipes.
Oh, God.
So exactly how did young J.S. Bach wind up behind bars?
How did
Fantastic question, Elizabeth. Well, the year was 1708.
I remember it well.
I thought you did, right?
Do, yeah.
J.S. Bach, cocksure, 23-year-old musical phenom. He'd been hired as the court organist for the city of Weimar, as in the city that would later be known as the name provider for the Weimar Republic, or Weimar if you prefer it that way.
I do.
Yes, anyway, the young Bach is hired to play the organ, right? And he's good. No one has any complaints about his service.
He's just tearing it up.
Yeah.
Woo! Fingers on fire.
Totally. He lasts 6 years in the Weimar court, and he's eventually appointed as the Concertmeister. That's concert with a K and a Z in the middle of it.
That's
what it
like
means is
the forgotten name of a Skid Row album.
Concertmeister. So what this means is he's the music director of the court, right?
Yeah.
So this also means he's now responsible for composing original works for a talented ensemble of musicians. However, this also means he has to take orders from his not one but 2 bosses, the Kapellmeister and the Vice Kapellmeister.
Okay.
And I know what those roles are because I love the movie Amadeus.
Right.
But the Kapellmeister is the main conductor of the orchestra or the ensemble of musicians. So the big boss, the guy who used to stand there and wave the baton.
Yeah.
In this case, it was a father and son act.
Cute.
Yeah, because in the 1700s, and more often than not, men went into the family business.
It's a good gimmick.
So he's got his he's got his fail son as his vice Kapellmeister, and then the Kapellmeister dies, and his fail son takes over, and J.S. Bach loses it. He's like, because anybody who has ears to hear the beauty of his music knows that the job should go to J.S. Bach. This is it's just like, it's insulting otherwise, right? And he certainly knew this.
Yeah.
So to make matters worse, he thought the Vice Kapellmeister was just an abject failure as a person and as a man. So he didn't respect him, didn't like him. And so what does he do? Well, the bad boy of the 1700s, he's got to step out, right?
Yeah.
He's got to get free of this. So he does. He starts circulating his curriculum vitae, his musical resume. He's like, would you like to read this? Check this out. I've got this on parchment, vellum, whatever you like. And he's able to scoop up a new gig, right? At the end of the summer of 1717, he's named the Kapellmeister of the court of Prince Leopold of the state of Anhalt-Köthen, right? Now, there was one person who could stop him from taking his new job. His old boss, a man named Wilhelm Ernst. But Elizabeth, you would call him the Duke of Saxon-Weimar. And he was an intolerant Lutheran man. His brother was the co-duke, but he was such a drunk, he was only co-duke in name only.
Wait,
Everybody
you can
knew.
be a co-duke.
Oh, yeah. And when his brother passed, he got a new co-duke. It was like a whole power sharing. The Germans didn't want anyone to have too much power. That's why they stayed apart in all their little duchies for so long. Anyway, Wilhelm Ernst, he holds power, and as such, he hears this young star concertmeister plans to leave his court and find better employment elsewhere with Prince Leopold, right? After this slight of watching this idiot son take a job that rightfully should go to him. So he decides, well, I'm going to teach this young J.S. Bach how things go down in Saxe-Weimar. So he rejects Bach's resignation. He teaches him a lesson in power politics and tells him, see, no, baby, you ain't going nowhere. You here, baby, you with me. But he says like in German, right?
Okay,
so my man J.S. Bach, he's stubborn, he's hard-headed, he's young, so he kept at it. He kept trying to resign. And the Duke was like, I thought you had good ears, baby. You ain't hearing me. You ain't going nowhere. But again, like in German, right?
Yeah.
So finally in November, when he should have been preparing his Christmas Mass program at his new gig, J.S. Bach is absolutely losing it. Like he was losing it before, now it's erupting from his skin, right? I wish I could tell you who he popped off at. I don't know. But we do know that he popped off in the court of the duchy, and everyone was like, oh no, because young hot-headed Bach just was like basically yelling, fire me, fire me, fire me. Which, by the way, my friend Dave once did exactly this at DreamWorks until Jeffrey Katzenberg was like, okay, fine, I fire you. You can go. So this behavior still goes on today is what I'm saying. And Dave would be amused that I just compared him to J.S. Bach, so R.I.P. Dave. Anyway, back to J.S. Bach and Duke Wilhelm Ernst and their battle of stubbornness. So young Bach, he goes ham in the court of Saxe-Weimar, and Duke Wilhelm Ernst is like, you do know I have my own prison, right, baby? So J.S. Bach gets to know the fortress prison firsthand, up close, personal. He gets to know the feel of the cold, damp stones. And guess what my man does once he's locked up? He's like, cool, I still want to resign.
Yeah.
Just keeps pushing it, right? So he tries to wait out the Duke's anger. And it's like, he hopes that he'll find some like new something else to get him mad about, and he'll eventually let him go. That does not happen. So Bach is like, well, can I at least get some work done while I'm here? Can you bring me some pens and paper and some ink? And the Duke is like, he's belligerent, but he's not like a capricious man. So he's like, give him some pens and paper. So at this point, J.S. Bach writes a good piece of the Well-Tempered Clavier. Yeah. Right? So more time passes, J.S. Bach is writing up his masterpiece. The Duke is flexing his power on him. After like a week, the Duke is like, has the concertmeister changed his mind yet? And the jailers would go and ask him, and J.S. Bach would be like, hell no, I haven't. Fire me. And then the Duke would hear this and he'd be like, okay, well, he can stay in there. Maybe he get his mind right. And then more time passes. The Duke would get curious and ask if the concertmeister had a change in his thinking yet. And the jailers would ask him and he would change his mind. And he'd be like, I need more pens and paper, but no. And oh, by the way, tell the Duke to fire me. So the Duke would hear this and be like, and he'd like throw like a pork leg across the room in anger or whatever, right? Now keep in mind, Bach is young. He's 32 and he's also super about that bed life. So he's got 6 kids, a wife at home. Whoa. And he's locked up in a prison fortress for a month and doesn't know when it's going to end. Yeah. Still doesn't give in. I'm impressed about that. Anyway, finally, after a month of this, the Duke is like, is that cat J.S. Bach still counting among the living? And everyone's like, yeah, he is. And it's like, okay, cool. We should let him out. I mean, I've changed my mind. He's stubborn. I don't think we're going to break him. He's really ruining the mood in my court. Let him go. So they let him go. And I was like, all right, so December, after a month inside, jailers turn him loose, right? And he finally accepts the resignation. Now he can leave. So J.S. Bach is sprung from the pen. He swoops up his brood of kids, his young wife. He splits town. He heads to a new home in Anhalt-Köthen, right? I mentioned earlier. Yeah. Now that's where he would go on to write his Brandenburg concertos and do all the famous stuff. But I mentioned earlier how he, as a young man, also fought his students as their teacher. Yeah. When he was first starting out, before he was the Concertmeister at the Weimar court, Bach was a music teacher, just a normal music teacher. Trouble for him was he was 18 years old. Dang. So his students were barely younger than him. Some were actually older than him, and they often were bigger than him. So he got very used to them not treating him with the appropriate amount of respect that he at least expected. Consequently, Bach wasn't a big fan of his students. So also, he's this hot-headed musical phenom, and he's stuck teaching know-nothings how to, like, not sound terrible on the harpsichord.
Yeah.
So he just hates it, right? And some of his students were known hard cases. So much so that the local city council referred to his students as scandalous. Like, they are in the notes. They're like, oh, that's the scandalous students over at such and such.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, he's teaching this hard-scrabble lot of ne'er-do-wells, and they've taken to making fun of him outside of class because they don't like him. And the students have all these taunting nicknames for their young teacher. If they see them out, they follow him, they harass him because it's like, what are you going to do outside of class? You can't do anything outside of class, right? Once again, but in German.
Yeah.
So it gets so bad that young Bach starts carrying a blade on him. It's only a matter of time until the inevitable occurred. The worst among the students, both in behavior and in musical talent, was a cat named Bach.
Yeah.
And so there's 3 years older than Bach. He's the main bully of the bunch. He was also a bassoonist. I just thought I should throw that in there. Bassoonist. One night, Bach is out with the boys, and who do they see but young Bach out for an evening constitutional with his cousin, Barbara Katharina. They're in the town's market square, so the center of town. And that's where Bach and the boys are just laying about. And they spot their teacher, Bach, come into the town square. And so what do? They go and harass him in the town square. Only this time, Bach grabs like a big stick, like a broken piece of tree branch, and he storms over to Bach. And this cat, Bach, is bigger than Bach. And I'm guessing he's also like had a few. So Bach gets in Bach's face, and he spits all these angry, hot words. And if they have like an ignorant tone, and he's like, "Why have you been making abusive remarks about me, teacher?" Right? And Bach can sense the trouble of brewing, so he lies, and he says, No, never. I would never make abusive remarks about you. Whoever told you that, he's a liar. Right? And so Bach is like, okay, well, maybe that's true, but you have insulted my bassoon playing. And anyone who insults my bassoon insults me. So Bach is like, whoa, chill, Bach, man, come on. But he's not hearing it. And he's not hearing it so much so that it explodes into this event. Well, rather than me just tell you about it, Elizabeth, I'd like you to close your eyes.
My eyes are closed.
And I want you to picture it. It's a pleasant summer evening in the walled town of Arnstadt, in the Duchy of Thuringia, in what will later be Eastern Central Germany. At the moment, you are enjoying the sweet summer evening breeze as children gambol about the town square, running off their excess energy, as elders gather in small clusters on the edge, watching the exuberance of youth with their wizened smiles. You are in the middle, neither child nor elder. You are an adult of working age, specifically the town's best bookmaker. You are well regarded for your artistry, and you make a living turning out beautiful, gilded editions of beloved classics and new books penned by Thuringia's finest minds. You were on your walk home when you decided to stop and buy a small bowl of Zwiebelsuppe and a slice of poppy seed strudel, and sit for a short spell to enjoy the transition into evening. But the pleasant evening vibe is about to be shattered by a local thug, a bassoon player named Bach. You don't see how it began, but you hear it escalate. You set down your cup of onion soup and your strudel, and you turn your attention to the developing scene. You see the much larger man, the local thug and bassoon player Bach, is brandishing some sort of large stick and threatening the young music teacher Johann Sebastian Bach. You hear Bach shout as his teacher, "You dirty dog!" And then he swings the branch with the clear aim to knock his teacher's head loose from his shoulders. But Bach is no young ninny. He reaches into his overcoat and draws out a knife. He lets the bully bassoonist see the blade's cool, steely reflection as it catches a glint of moonlight. Being ignorant as he is, Bach charges in with the broken tree branch and takes a few more swings. Young Bach lets that blade sing in the air. He jabs and stabs as he dodges the angry bassoonist's tree branch. You gasp when you see Bach thrust with his dagger at the midsection of Bach. The blade is lost in his overcoat, and it does not draw back bloody. It misses the bully bassoonist by a mere inch or two. Bach tosses down his broken tree branch, and he tackles Bach around the midsection. The two young men crash against the cobblestone of the market. They continue to wrestle and to throw blows. At this point, other men and passersby rush into the scene to separate the two before Bach kills the bully bassoonist, Bach. The crowd pulls the two young men apart. You feel a wave of relief. You watch as the hothead Bach gets up, brushes himself off. His cousin, Barbara Katharina, helps him dust off, and then they go on about their walk. A few of his students, Bach's crew, have to hold the bully bassoonist back long enough for the music teacher and his cousin to leave the market square. You sigh to yourself, just another night in downtown Arnstadt.
I love it.
Since he loved arguing before a court or a prince or a duke, J.S. Bach did not let this matter go on that evening attack. So instead, he had his cousin, Barbara Katharina, come with him and be the star witness as he brought the matter before the town council of Arnstadt. And speaking on his own behalf was Geyersbach. And he spoke up for his actions that fateful evening. Now, Geyersbach said that his anger was understandable, since on more than one occasion, in front of others in the youth music ensemble, his teacher, J.S. Bach, had called him, quote, a nanny goat bassoonist.
That's right.
So the argument did not sway the town council, but they also ruled that no punishment was necessary, kind of mixed bag of justice, no harm, no fault decision, I suppose. Anyway, the town council did instruct the music teacher to try to win over his students, so that way they didn't feel that they have to assault him in the town square.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are a few choice moments from the life of rebel bad boy Johann Sebastian Bach, which just goes to show you, Elizabeth, whether it's Sebastian Bach of Skid Row or Johann Sebastian Bach, sometimes you're going to get tackled for being a hothead. And that's just what happens when you're named Bach. Sebastian Bach.
That's right.
Centuries may separate them, but their names and their public's reaction to their musical genius is the same. Someone tackle that guy. Anyway, and people always watching out have that same reaction. What the Bach is going on? So what's our ridiculous takeaway here, Elizabeth?
Always ask yourself, what would Keith Richards do?
That's a good rule.
That's my takeaway.
I'm going to get you
Zaron,
that as a shirt.
What's your ridiculous takeaway?
People have been the same forever.
Yeah.
We should remember that when we're looking backwards at time.
Yeah.
We should remember that when we're looking at each other presently. And we
Yeah.
should remember that when we're looking forward at the future.
Good
People will
call.
always be the same. There's nothing new under the sun. Just new technology here and there.
Very true.
But Bach to Bach, people are mostly the same. You in the mood for a talk, Bach?
Always.
Producer D, what you got for us?
Oh my God, did he just say that?
OMG.
Hey, Producer D, Elizabeth, and Zaron. My name's Jennifer. I'm calling from Miami, Florida, and I just heard your episode about the masked characters and the crimes they committed. The reason why the University of Miami, their mascot is the ibis, is because it is the last bird to leave before hurricane and the first one to come back. There you go. Have a great day.
Oh, that's cool.
That's dope to know. Thank you.
That is really cool.
I love to learn something
That's
new every
like
day.
that is a strong, skinny-legged bird.
It's a good symbol, too.
Right?
Yes, resilience. And
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
that.
I love it.
Well, thank you for leaving that, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
You can always find us online, Ridiculous Crime, on our social medias, and you can go to the iHeart app, download it, and leave a talk back like we just heard. We love those. Please do that. And also, we have our new Ridiculous Crime Pod account on YouTube, so go to Ridiculous Crime Pod, and you can find it. I've said it wrong in the past, so there you go. That's correctly expressed. Also, you can email us if you like at ridiculouscrime@gmail.com. Please start your email, Dear Producer D. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next crime. Ridiculous Crime is hosted by Elizabeth Dutton and Zaron Burnett. Produced and edited by the lead singer of the cover band Battlin Bachs, Dave Kinston. And starring Annalise Rucker as Judith. Research is by Sebastian Bach's former Hairspray consultant, Marissa Brown. Our theme song is by the Bon Jovi to Our Skid Row, Thomas Lee and Travis Dutton. The host wardrobe provided by Botany 500. Guest hair and makeup by Sparkle Shot and Mr. Andre. The executive producers are Richie Sambora Truther, Ben Bolin, and former Teen Beat cover photographer, the man who invented the Aquanet hairspray fan, Noel Brown.
Ridiculous crime.
Say it one more time.
Ridiculous crime.
Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.